He's been universally condemned by the British media, even though back here in Canada, the media covers up his failed record and his terrible reputation in the United Kingdom.
The more Mark Carney talks, the more he accidentally lets things slip. Like, oh, I don't know, possibly the truth. We have such a wild breaking news day for you, and it's not even speculative because it's coming out of his own mouth. I'm Jasmine Lane. Looks like even the left is starting to turn on boomers. Chinese interference has been confirmed to be helping Mark Carney in this election, and he gave one of the cringiest speeches of all time, and then got absolutely obliterated by Poilievre and a few others. I cannot wait for you to see those clips. What a wild day it has been. All that and more coming up on Over Opinionated. Be sure to subscribe, like, follow, comment your thoughts down below, because it really is up to us to use our voices, to say what we think, and do everything in our power to get rid of these sick and twisted, self-serving establishment liberals who are knowingly destroying our country. And that isn't just me being dramatic. Quite literally, the liberals' own report confirms it. I'll read you this from Larry Brock, who's an MP, fabulous individual. He says, Canada is in serious trouble. According to their own data, this is what's ahead if we stay on this path. A poorer population, the collapse of the middle class, Canadians unable to afford homes or live independently, a growing national mental health crisis, people losing hope in their future. This isn't speculation. It is the Liberals' own admission after a decade of Trudeau-Carney policies, and we cannot afford a fourth term. And to anybody who is still supporting the Liberal Party that you may know of, grandparents who are so out of touch they aren't even remotely considering the future of their grandchildren, I would ask you to challenge them to say, what has Mark Carney announced that is different than what they were already doing? I would challenge you to say, how is it that Mark Carney apparently has all this great advice for our economy, yet he has been advising them since 2020? Has our economy boomed in the last 5 years? Quite the opposite.
We understand that values determine value. Canada intends to take a leadership role at the upcoming climate change conference in the Brazilian Amazon.
Now, in case you were for some reason still fooled about Mark Carney's plans, I want you to listen to what he says here very, very carefully.
Crucially, our new plan recognizes one undeniable fact. Protecting nature and fighting climate change are intimately linked. Our soils, our oceans, our trees are the best stores of carbon that we have. In fact, nature-based solutions could get us, as a world, almost 1/3 of the way to reducing our emissions and helping to stave off the worst effects of climate change. And at the same time, on the other hand, climate change threatens to irreversibly harm our natural environment. Only by fighting climate change can we protect our natural environment. And only by protecting our natural environment can we protect ourselves, our planet, our future from the threat of climate change. So globally, Canada will work to establish international standards for voluntary carbon markets.
So, to clarify, in the same ramble, he says, Canada is not at all ever probably going to experience a crisis due to climate change. And carbon is the big bad guy, right? Well, unfortunately for him, he admits that carbon is being absorbed by plant life, which helps keep it healthy and grow. It is plant food, by the way. And despite all of the evidence, even coming from NASA, that is proving that climate change being this absolute crisis and, oh, it's a threat, we have to be so afraid, is not an issue, especially here in Canada.
We need to get those emissions down. We can get those emissions down with Canadian technology. The example and one of the great opportunities for Alberta, for Canada, ultimately for the world, is to advance carbon capture and storage. The principal opportunity there is in the Pathways project. That's how one reconciles is both producing more, which has the advantage of pushing out foreign supplies, makes Canada richer, pays for our social programs, gets good jobs, helps support our environment at the same time while using these gas. Mr. Akin, please.
I'll paraphrase the remaining part there because I had an email that popped up while I was in the middle of recording it and gave a little push notification on the screen. But he essentially says that Canada is going to be a leader and we are going to introduce some new thing where other nations can voluntarily decide to opt into it in order to receive financial kickbacks from Canada if they comply with our carbon ideas, carbon credits. Maybe he wants a carbon score. Maybe it is that he wants to bring back the carbon tax and you'll have to pay less carbon taxes if your nation does something that benefits myself, my wife, my family, his daughter's involved too, and my friends and colleagues and our personal financial investments. That is why, allegedly, Mark Carney got involved into Canadian politics. It's so bizarre to me how people aren't able to put those pieces together. You literally have these net zero oligarchs who have been peddling this stuff for decades, who have enriched themselves off of shaming you and changing policy. That's where all of his money lies. Allegedly. And people are so brainwashed into believing what the mainstream media wants them to, believing what the Liberal Party pushes out with the help of all sorts of interference, we'll get to that next, that they actually believe the reason why Mark Carney would have given up his lifestyle of making millions of dollars off of all of this stuff, allegedly, was because he just really cares about Canada so much. Duh. He went from being somebody who had influence over policies that benefited him to being someone who is now making those policies that benefit him, allegedly.
We are aware of an information operation targeting the 45th general election on the social media platform WeChat. The information operation was launched by Yoli Yomien, WeChat's most popular news account. Intelligence reporting links the Yoli Yomien account to the PRC, Chinese Communist Party's Central Political and Legal Affairs Commission. The content of this information operation contains story about the Prime Minister, Liberal Party of Canada leader, and candidate in Nepean, Mark Carney. This content has been amplified in a coordinated and inauthentic way. This information operation had contrasting positive and negative narratives, first amplifying Mr. Carney's stance with the United States and then targeting his experience and credentials. The site task force assesses that the foreign state-backed information operation was intended to influence Canadian Chinese communities and look to mold perceptions about the candidate.
You know what is the worst part about this, though, is most people will not watch this press conference about this interaction where it was very clear that unlike what CBC, CTV, and Global are all reporting, Mark Carney was targeted. No, honey, he was not targeted by foreign interference from China. Remember how Chrystia Freeland was targeted and they were saying awful things about her? You know, so that more people would be likely to vote for Mark Carney. Well, in this case, they're saying really positive things about Mark Carney. And why would they do that? I mean, hey, we had the whole Paul Chang story that just broke. Well, here is Paul Chang's replacement, by the way, if you actually for a second are silly enough to think that Mark Carney is not deeply connected to China. Here is Peter Wen, who is literally singing a ballad for the CCP while in uniform. And that is the new candidate who replaced Paul Chang. And note how not a single journalist or reporter questioned Mark Carney about that during his press conference today. Not one, even though it broke before his press conference. But why would Mark Carney have so many deep ties? Well, we can go on his past patterns. You know, this could certainly be a very large geopolitical strategy, economic self-interest as well. Mark Carney is a big supporter of all the places where China has a lot of deep roots and growing influences, such as the World Economic Forum, the Bank of International Settlements, the UN, and all of their climate initiatives. And by the way, the green energy that Mark Carney and his family are basically the leading architects of very much benefit China. Want to know who controls the vast majority of solar panel production? What about battery materials? What about wind turbine supply? China. So you have Mark Carney, who says in the same statement that Canada is not at all responsible for anything happening, for the terrible threat of climate change, as he puts it. In fact, our forests are flourishing as a result of it. Yet he still really wants you to be punished to save the climate. And it's kind of almost like he is helping China financially with, climate subsidies, EV mandates, green infrastructure, all of that stuff that indirectly funnels demand to China's industrial base.
We are going to build ourselves into a... Don't take it away. I was just saying clean. That was Danielle. She was coming in. A clean energy superpower.
If only that existed beyond his ideological grip that he has on liberal supporters who are far too foolish to do their own research, to go past the first page or two on Google, to ask the critical questions about what all of this would mean for us.
Mark Carney has been wrong about every major economic issue of our time. He was wrong to support carbon taxes. He was wrong to oppose pipelines. He was wrong 4 years ago when he said the biggest risk to the world was deflation and proposed hundreds of billions of dollars of money printing. He was wrong when he caused the inflation crisis in Great Britain and the housing crisis in that country. He's been universally condemned by the British media, even though back here in Canada, the media covers up his failed record and his terrible reputation in the United Kingdom. We cannot afford a fourth Liberal term of Mark Carney driving up spending, money printing, taxes, and inflation while blocking our resource projects. We cannot afford that risk.
Now, if you just take a page out of the authoritarian playbook, it will clearly show you that the best way to make sure that people don't believe that and that they worship you instead as though you are this false prophet is to silence dissenting voices. And you do that incrementally. You don't do that, with some blanket statement because people will think you're crazy. What you do instead is similar to what the Liberal Party has been conducting over the last 4+ years, where you vilify, criticize, condemn, and ostracize people who go against your narrative.
We're fighting them on Fox News, which is what they understand. We're sending Doug Ford onto Fox News to show them that we're not messing around up here. And we're going to send Danielle next. Maybe we won't send her. Maybe we'll send Danielle. No, maybe we won't. We won't send Danielle. We're going to keep her. No, keep her. No, that's a bad idea. Forget. Strike that. Strike that. Just ignore that back there.
We are sending Ford on Fox News. But Danielle, no, we need to keep her at home. Why would that be?
How do you feel about being mocked by the Prime Minister of Canada and Liberal leaders, which he did, I believe, in Victoria, bringing your name up and the name of Premier Ford, but more so yourself, and making you the butt of jokes during the campaign?
Well, I've noticed this with progressive men, how much they talk about how much they support women until they meet a strong conservative woman. And so this is a pretty consistent type of approach that I've seen, not only from the current Prime Minister, but the former one as well. And the attitude is, sit down and shut up. Well, I don't shut up. I make sure that Albertans know exactly how I feel about issues, and I'm going to continue advocating on behalf of my province, whether he likes it or not.
I wanted to ask you about a new poll that says 3 in 10 Albertans want to leave Canada if Mark Carney's Liberals win this election. You've said that you won't lead a referendum, but where do you stand on this? Do you want Alberta to leave Canada?
Well, I want Canada to work. I want Canada to be able to meet its potential. I want for us to be able to build economic corridors. I want us to be able to develop all of our resources, from oil and gas all the way through to critical minerals and beyond. But I also want Canada to work for Alberta, and it hasn't for the last 10 years because of terrible policies by the Liberals. And so I put forward a list of 9 items that I think would allow for us to have a reset in our relationship with the Federation, depending on who wins in 3 weeks' time. And that stands today. Those are some very basic things if we want to actually move to that reality of making Canada an economic powerhouse and supporting Alberta in particular. So I really hope that we can get Canada on Team Alberta, because Team Alberta has always been on Team Canada.
That is the reality that so many of us see so very clearly, but that the Liberal establishment doesn't want you to see. They want you instead to think that Danielle Smith is a traitor, that anybody opposing what their plan is a traitor. And it is honestly so embarrassing and cringy that there's all of these people who are so indoctrinated and radicalized with whatever the Liberal narrative is that they actually look up to this guy, Mark Carney, as the hero savior.
It is true reconciliation, as Stephanie showed us at the start. It is a process. Michelle, sorry, I doubled up on Stephanie. Stephanie, I'm still shaken by all your experience. Sorry, Michelle. Michelle did. There's always one mistake in my thing.
And thankfully, it's not only Conservatives who see right through him.
Do you think Mr. Carney understands Quebec?
I think he does not give a damn. It is a problem for him to be forced to try to speak French, and he doesn't like it, and he does not really understand. And then he will have to come in a debate against 2 guys who speak French pretty well, still improving. He doesn't like us so much. He will never say that he does not like us, but I don't feel the love. I don't feel interest for Quebec. I don't feel interest for the difference. I don't feel interest for the language. I don't feel interest for the culture. I don't feel interest for anything which is Quebec. He doesn't say the words lumberwood. He doesn't say the word aluminum. He doesn't say the word fisheries. He doesn't say the word aerospace. He doesn't. What defines us is not even part of his vocabulary. He still has 3 weeks to show that even in minority, it wouldn't be so bad. Because for the time being, I don't see what's good for Quebec in it.
You know, the fact that Mark Carney doesn't care and doesn't know anything about Canada isn't nearly as alarming to me as how shielded and protected he has been by the media. I mean, hey, he just announced he was going to increase their funding $150 million a year. Who could pass that one up? Certainly not those big, wealthy CEOs. But what's more concerning here is the fact that there are so few Canadians who even realize how little they know about Mark Carney.
And Canada moves forward as Canada, not reading Truth Social and X and watching tweets down there. We'll take charge.
If there is anything I am completely sure of at this point in time, it's that Canada will not be Canada anymore under another Liberal government that is run by Mark Carney. I've actually, quite honestly, never felt so, I don't know what the word is. I want to say afraid, definitely afraid, but more so just uneasy, really gut-wrenchingly uneasy about the future before than when Mark Carney was put in place here. You know, he's been saying so many things about meeting with Keir Starmer from the UK. He talked about it multiple times today in his press conference. And Keir Starmer, somebody who Carney has said he's been on the phone with, he's meeting with, they align with, they're going to be a great partner of ours. They're very much on the exact same page with everything that Mark Carney is about. And I'm just going to throw it out there that in the UK right now, there's roughly 30 people a day that get arrested for social media posts. And there's people who have been jailed for more than 2 years for social media posts that ran contrary to the narrative of the government, but didn't advocate for violence or anything like that. Like literally there are grandmas who are getting arrested in the UK right now for things that they're saying on the internet. And Mark Carney, these small little moments, I'm paying attention to every single one of them, when he will condemn, criticize, and try to put people against those who have dissenting voices that are not aligned with exactly what it is that he wants to do. And I'm actually quite scared about that for all of us, certainly. I'm very scared about that for myself and my future. Bill C-63, sure, it was put on the back burner for now, but I have a really hard time believing that something like that won't come up again with the amount of times that this government, the Liberal government, has mentioned misinformation and disinformation. Same with the NDP, same with the Greens. They're all in on that same thing together. It's very scary, and you see the way that Carney treats the media now. And while I obviously am rooting for the Conservatives to win, I'm also definitely considering my life going forward because I love being able to do this, and I love being able to say what I think, and I love freedom. I don't want control under the guise of protecting the environment or for your own safety. Control is control. I don't care how you dress it up. And it's definitely something that I'm having to consider right now because who knows what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks here. Anyway, I'm Jasmine Lane. Thank you so very much for watching this video. I hope it was informative. This is Over Opinionated. Give us a follow online. You can also subscribe to the channel if you're watching here on YouTube. Like the video, and most importantly, comment your thoughts down below where we will continue the conversation there. Also, tomorrow morning, I'm hoping, I have an interview that I did with David Nino Rodriguez. He is a former boxer and overall just a lovely, sweet human being. And we chatted a lot about U.S. tariffs, what's happening here in Canada as well. He's not from Canada, obviously. He lives very, very south on the border where El Paso, Texas is. So stay tuned for that.